Recentemente, o Opus Dei tem sido acusado de ser uma seita secreta e perigosa. Quase todas as críticas concentram-se no estilo de vida dos fidelíssimos numerários que moram nos centros do Opus Dei. A correspondência deles é censurada. Suas escolhas quanto a livros, filmes e entretenimentos requerem aprovação.
It's a controlled environment. It's an environment in which you're seldom by yourself. I started questioning in my own mind to what extent Opus Dei exerts influence and controls your life and your thinking and everything.
It was a fear of hell that allowed me to stay for so long. I've been told this was a divine vocation, and within the context of the church, if you abandon your vocation, you go to hell.
To have blind obedience and you're getting to the point where you don't question, there's where the cult difference comes. That's where it can get destructive and it's harmful to the individual.
How sad for a 17-year-old girl to give up her whole life, her whole family. For God, yeah, but for what?
Colleen O'Neill era adolescente quando entrou em 1985. Numerária auxiliar, cozinhou e lavou em vários centros do Opus Dei, nos Estados Unidos.
When I joined Opus Dei, I was told you can't call your family and you can't visit them. And we don't make long-distance phone calls and we don't go visit them. So I was like, okay. And so I didn't do that.
When one takes on a commitment, especially if one has a celibate commitment to go anywhere and do anything for the service of God, that they may not be as available to their families as they were in the past.
And my parents freaked out, like, what the heck is going on, you know? How come you're not calling us? How come you're not visiting us?
When I hear these stories from parents of children that have joined Opus Dei that have been cut off from their parents, I'm horrified. I mean, that is not what the Catholic Church is about.
O Opus Dei nega que seus membros sejam afastados de suas famílias.
They have another family too that they have acquired by free choice. They have commitments to that family, and they have to balance them like any married person who gets married and has to balance two families.
Apesar das dúvidas sobre seu compromisso vitalício com o Opus Dei, O'Neill seguiu fielmente sua vocação.
I'm in this forever because you think God called you to this, and you know, come hell or high water, you're going to be faithful. You're going to stick it out for the rest of your life.
When you're dealing with the cult dynamic, there's total control of information, not only externally in the physical environment, but there's internal control in terms of one's communication with oneself.
You don't have the psychological freedom to leave, and that's almost like being in a prison that you don't know you're in, and you can't get out.
Depois de 20 anos dentro do Opus Dei, O'Neill tomou uma decisão drástica.
I learned, hey, I'm under mind control here, and this just isn't right. And if my vocation was not from God and is not supernatural and divine, then what am I doing here?
Em abril de 2005, O'Neill desapareceu. A polícia pensou que ela fora raptada. Na verdade, ela estava em um hotel com uma desprogramadora de membros de seitas contratada pela família dela.
Colleen was a very typical intervention. She was disturbed inside, wanting to have some freedom, but at the same time not wanting to leave the group, not wanting to leave doing God's perfect will in her vocation.
You give up your life, you give up any money, you give up everything, absolutely everything. And once you're in, you're constantly reminded you gave everything to God.
It's true that there are people who have suffered because the question of vocation is often a question that involves the deepest, most intimate part of their being, and it's a tough question. And I really sympathize with them because at times they can put their whole life into a task and then they see it's not for them.
Estas são Diane e Tammy DiNicola. Em 1987, Tammy era caloura na faculdade de Boston, onde foi convidada para o Opus Dei, do qual foi membro por 2 anos e meio.
When I was a member, I was required to fill out a statistical sheet about all the people that I was working on to join, and I had to hand that in every month and check off, you know, has this girl been to confession with an Opus Dei priest? Have you talked apostolically with her?
Tammy, como a família de Colleen, recorreu a desprogramador de membros de seitas.
The tragedy about Opus Dei is that they transform people into almost like their own robots in some ways, where you become so disassociated from your true feelings and who you truly are, that you can shut out the people that nurtured you, that raised you, that love you.
Sua mãe, Diane, começou a entrar em contato com outras famílias católicas.
I'm just a mom who wanted to spare other families what my family went through. It was life-altering. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Em 1991, ela criou uma organização dedicada a combater o Opus Dei. Sua atividade foi recentemente amplificada pelas vantagens da internet, atingindo milhares de pessoas.
We don't have millions of dollars. We're just a grassroots organization. And all the people who have been hurt by Opus Dei, the people that we thought we were a family of one back in the 1980s, the web is a tool for the truth. Finally, we have this thing that connects us.
She is trying to get people to look at some of the problems with the organization, and I think in many cases she has a point.
A large proportion of the members of Opus Dei don't have that experience, and that's why they hear these things. They say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
O Opus Dei rejeita as acusações de que age como seita, mas reconhece que ao longo dos anos houve almas magoadas.
There certainly must have been instances in the past when someone did not perform in the best way possible. But I do think that on a whole, people are trying to do their best.
I would like to express sorrow for any hurt that we may have offered to anyone, and sympathy for what they suffer. But at the same time, one has to understand it's a complex situation, and it's not something that I think the blame is easily fixed on one thing or another.
Mas essas situações complexas existem, segundo observadores, devido a uma tendência histórica do Opus Dei de conduzir muitos assuntos em segredo.
Há muita gente santa que não entende o teu caminho. Não te empenhes em fazer que o compreendam. Perderás o tempo e darás lugar a indiscrições.
Escrivá was so, I would say, almost paranoid about protecting the identity of Opus Dei. He was very, very leery about any kind of collaboration with any other groups in the church on the fear that Opus Dei would be assimilated to one of these other groups.
As finanças do Opus Dei também são um assunto privado. Há muita preocupação com o tamanho de sua riqueza e o quanto ela influencia a Igreja Católica.
Usually what conspiracy theorists will say is that Opus Dei had come in, for example, with bags of cash to bail out the Vatican Bank because of its crisis in the late 70s.
Em seu livro esclarecedor sobre o Opus Dei, John Allen e um analista financeiro examinaram as contas da prelazia através de milhares de documentos, alguns públicos, alguns cedidos pelo Opus Dei.
The practical reality is that Opus Dei simply does not have the bags of cash that a lot of people imagine it does. If you look at the financial profile of Opus Dei, their total assets is about $340 million. Their total worldwide assets, the best estimate, is about $2.8 billion. Now, you compare that to a group like the Knights of Columbus, which is almost entirely an American organization, has a financial base that is some 3 times larger than Opus Dei. And yet nobody thinks that the Knights of Columbus are scheming to manipulate the election of the Pope or to control the inner workings of the Vatican.
Apesar da polêmica e da oposição, o Opus Dei foi abraçado pela Igreja Católica quando um Papa formidável concedeu-lhe um selo especial de aprovação.